Hey everybody, what are you doing today? We're out here with our 1983 Oldsmobile Cutlass Cruiser Wagon. I'm gonna give it a bath today. We got our chemical guys. Smells like cherry pink stuff, super suds. We got our Harbor Freight bucket. I'm not gonna use the pressure washer today. We've already pressure washed most of the grime off this thing that we can, but we are going to just do a basic wash. Get most of the shit knocked off of it, and we'll go from there. Maxi suds. It's okay if you get a little water on the inside. It ain't gonna hurt anything, okay? It's not gonna make the car rust any more than it already is. It doesn't have any cancer. It's got service rust. But you can open doors and wash jams. It's not gonna kill you. It's not gonna hurt the car. It's fast. This thing's rough. If you saw how filthy the inside is, you'd understand. We're gonna tackle that next because we're hoping to cruise this thing again on Saturday. So, gotta at least be able to be driven with the windows down. Side note, we need to do something about this limp hood ornament. I know what it takes. Just don't know if I'm ready to take care of it yet. Kind of adds to the character of this hoopty. What do you guys think? She's looking good. Haven't cleaned up the front wheel, cleaned up the back wheel. I've got 3 more wheels to go. And then we're gonna take a peek at the inside. One last walk around on the filth that is this Cutlass Cruiser Wagon. Hopefully that extracts and it's not broken down on velour. Mildew all over that, dust all over everything, man. This is, you know, it's sad. Cool thing that I noticed the other day, these windows don't roll down. There's no apparatus. The wing windows open up, but the large window does not roll down. Just looking at this a little bit more. Back seat's not so bad. But look at this mess. You got literally have moss growing on the inside of the tailgate. Looks like maybe the tailgate was down. It had something like a tire stored there or something. I don't know. It's just weird. But all the filth that is. Now, like I said, I'm no detailer. Those bros. I'm no detailer, but I'm gonna do my best to at least knock the dust off this thing, okay? I want it to be presentable when I go cruising on Saturday. A little bit. If it cruises, it runs, it drives, it stops. But it idles like shit and it stalls when you put it in reverse. So I think I know what's going on. There's a noise under the hood that it's not making. I don't know what you guys know about these 80s cars, but if you put the key in the ignition, double chin moment there, huh? I'm losing weight. Turn it to on, there should be a tick, 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 tick happening underneath the hood. There's an electronic valve in the carburetor. It ain't ticking. I'm thinking that might have something to do with what's going on. Could also be a stuck TCC solenoid. We still have yet to determine if this is a turbo 350C or a turbo 200C. 3-speed lockup converter. I'm gonna get to cleaning. I'm not gonna bore you with the mess. All right, guys, tell me what you think. Did I do all right? Got majority of the stain out of the seat there. Not bad. Now I got to deal with this monster. I went to the Department of Licensing today and just got a trip permit. Since it came from a salvage yard, they have to file some paperwork before I can actually take it, get it inspected by the State Patrol, and then have a title issued for it. So it might be a month before I am able to actually get a title. But in the state of Washington, I can get a trip permit as long as it's insured, and I can take it on cruises and things like that. So I've got a trip permit. Yesterday, I spent a large portion of the day cleaning this thing inside and out. I'm no detailer, but I think I did a pretty good job with basic cleaning supplies from the chemical guys and from LA's Totally Awesome. I don't know if you guys have used that, but their interior cleaner and their degreaser is fantastic. It's a Dollar Tree. Super affordable, super good stuff. Anyway, got the exterior clean, got the interior clean, got some of the rust and corrosion off of the trim, exterior trim. Some of it using a Barkeeper's Friend, I believe it's called, which has been around since 1882. Long time. Stuff's great. Tested on a small area. Read the package. It has a lot of information on it. That being said, today we are going to lower the Cutlass Cruiser Wagon, and I'm going to do it janky because I don't know if this thing is going to end up on coilovers or if we're going to put air ride on this car. I do put air ride on a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, the money's just not there right now. So if, you know, BC Fab or Easy Air Ride wants to sponsor a YouTube video, I mean, you know, I wouldn't be mad about it. If Priority Tire wanted to send me out a new set of white walls for this car, you know, I wouldn't be mad about it. Let's just say that. But in the meantime, puffy eyes from all the allergy. We got quite a bit of pollen out here. We're going to cut the springs in this car. There's a long discussion on why you should not cut springs. People say that it ruins everything. Here's the thing about coil springs. If the coil is the same size at the top to the bottom, they have a linear compression ratio. If you cut the spring, all you do is make it shorter. Now in the rear, these are honeycomb style springs. I've been cutting the back springs in G-body since I was 15 years old, and I ain't gonna stop today, okay? I'm not gonna, they don't make a spring more than 2 inches of drop, and we want about 3.5, maybe 4. These things max out at about 5 inches of drop. But that being said, that's what we're doing today. We're gonna cut some springs. So I'm gonna make sure that the Milwaukee's got the battery on the charger. I'm gonna make sure I got a couple of good cutoff wheels, and we're gonna get this thing, we're gonna do the back first and then bring the front down to match it. Stay tuned. All right, so we have the car jacked up. Didn't want to bore you guys. We've got our jack stand set. On the back of these G-bodies and most GM big cars from the 60s all the way through to the, you know, rear-wheel drive all the way to 96. Last year they made a rear-wheel drive live axle, not IRS, car. Most of them were 2, 3, or 4 link. The G-bodies are a 4 link. All we have to really do is remove these 2 shock absorbers and then slowly let the axle down, and then we'll be able to remove the spring from its seat, and then we cut them, put them back in, put it all back together, and then see what, if we need to trim more, if we need, or if we're sitting perfect, or if we cut too much. Impact wrench is helpful. You can do it with the hand tools. Cut off wheel, obviously, might need pry bars. I've got my mallet out, and then zip ties we're going to use to hold the bottom of the springs in the seats once we cut them. And I'll explain that here in a little bit, why we need to do that. Our jack stand is moving. Whoa. Okay. All right. And leave the jack underneath there just in case. Let's see if these actually want to play nice. Spring one. Spring two. See, that wasn't so hard, was it? Literally minutes. Now we are going to cut the springs. The thing with springs you have to understand is once you cut them, they cannot be welded back together. It is not sheet metal. This is spring steel. If you were to heat it up with a welder, you're going to ruin the tension, and that weld ain't going to hold. Even if it did, your spring rate is going to be all wonky. That being said, it's better to cut multiple times. You saw how easy these things are to get in and out. I can tell you right now, if you really want to slam this thing, you go from that bottom coil up and you take it to about right there, which would cut this spring damn near in half. And that will put this thing on the turf, just above the bump stops usually. That being said, we don't want this thing on the bump stops. I got a 3-year-old that's going to be riding around in this car with me. So we'll probably, this is the top, so that's where we're going to get rid of, but it pigtails here. So we're going to take all the way down. So that would be one coil, and we're going to start there. And like I was saying, you see these are honeycomb. They're tighter, or pigtailed. They're tighter at the top and the bottom. Now, when these sit up in the car, they sit up there. And you can see they don't necessarily have to be pigtailed to sit on that platform and not fall out of pocket. And that's all the way across on both of them. They don't have to be exact, just as close as you can get them. pretty close. We're going to throw these pads on the bottom now. Make sure this is aligned here. Now the reason for the zip ties is that these springs with these long shocks are going to just be sitting there kind of floating. They're not going to be trapped in between the top and the bottom any longer. So if you jack this car up for any reason and you're not paying attention, these springs could fall out of the pocket. Cut them too short, they'll actually do that when you hit a big bump. But believe it or not, a couple of zip ties help limit that. You can use hose clamps as well, steel hose, worm gear hose clamps. You could even just use one of those, but zip ties tend to work pretty well. And again, this isn't the final suspension for this car. This is so it doesn't look so damn gooberish and kind of give me some more motivation to spend additional money on it, because I think it needs a carburetor. I'm not a carburetor rebuild guy, so if it needs a carb, we're buying one. And I don't like the clocking of this, so we're gonna reclock it. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do this in one thing and get the jack out. This thing is gonna sit pretty low. But we do have another floor jack in case we get into a pinch. Oops. That's faster than I wanted it to be. There you go. Still have suspension. Now we're talking. Yes. All right, guys, that thing is sitting pretty dang perfect. Like I said, it's still got some play in the rear suspension, so we're not sitting on the bump stops. It is sitting slightly uneven, a little lower on the driver's side. So we might try to either clock the spring on this side, or we might need to trim the spring just a little bit. But we're gonna get the front down, hopefully that same amount. We don't want it much more than that, or we're gonna be really low. You can see the wheel gap and the frame to the ground is not far off from each other. So we don't want to be too low, but we want to be low. All right, so we've got the car all jacked up, got it supported on our jack stands, safety first. I've got the tools out that we should need. We've got a 15 millimeter for the upper shock bolt. We have a 13 millimeter on the impact for the lower shock bolts. I don't know what size the castle nut for the ball joint is yet. I do need to wire brush that and get that cleaned up so we can get that sized properly. The process goes like this. Take the shock absorber out, take the sway bar end link off. These things are crusty. The ball or the bushings are blown out. It's pretty standard. We're just gonna cut this thing off rather than try and fight these threads, because these things, it never ends well. I always end up cutting them off anyway. Then once we got that done, we'll do that on both sides so we can manipulate the sway bar wherever we need it to go. We will drop the lower castle nut on the lower ball joint, and with the jack underneath it, we'll lower it down. The spring will come out. It's probably going to give us a little bit of a fight because they are in there pretty tight. But that's the process. And then it goes back together in the reverse process. We cut the spring, put it back together. We're going to do one side at a time this time, aside from the sway bar end links. That being said, I'm going to wire brush this lower nut on both sides. I'm going to soak them with a little bit of Croil, and then we'll be right back at it. All right, guys, I'm going to try and keep you in frame and keep everything going here. As we go along, I'll try and talk you through what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it. Maybe even give you a little history lesson on why, even though this is so hated on nowadays, it used to be the norm. But I'm going to cut this off real quick, the sway bar inlet. All right, sway bar end link is done. Oh, I should have hit these with some Croil. Can's getting low. Had this same can of Croil for like 10 years. You don't need a lot of it. It just works. Shock absorber shaft, there is a little nub. I find getting a pair of locking pliers on it. Now that Harbor Freight has their Icon ratcheting wrenches, I've slowly been switching everything over to that from the Cobalt that I had been using. I chew these Cobalt ratcheting wrenches, chew them up all the time. And they just recently, a couple years ago now, put a Harbor Freight in up the street from me, about 25 minutes away. So it's become way more convenient. Now, there's bushings on here, but they've been there. This is an original shock. They've been there since this car was new, because this is old stuff. All right, had to pause it there for a second. Had a Amazon package come, but I am now working on getting the cotter pin out. The best way I find to do cotter pins. Wow, that's a copper cotter pin, no zinc coating or anything. The way I find the best way for me to do cotter pins is I have a shitty pair of old dikes that I keep around. They're dull, they're not good for cutting wire. They don't do much of anything other than pull cotter pins. But you try and flatten out the end of it, because this will be bent up or down. Try and get as flat as possible so you can get some bite on the head. Then you've got your nut here, so you grab the end of it like this and you pull with the pliers, and the tip of the pliers or dikes will push against the castle nut and pull the pin out, and you just kind of repeat that motion, moving the cutting teeth further up the cotter pin, and that'll do it. That being said, I still don't know what size this castle nut is, so I'm going to take a break here. All right, looks like it's a 15/16, but we are going to prep this. Now, again, we have our sway bar end link removed. We have our shock absorber removed. We're going to bust this ball joint, and I'm going to show you that process here in a second. You can also remove the tie rod if you want. It's up to you. We may end up doing it. Sometimes I get away without it. Sometimes I have to do it. It just kind of all depends on how bound up everything is. Now, is what you want to do is you want to unthread the castle nut to where it just has a few threads engaged. It's kind of a stop, and it lets you know when your ball joint has come out of the, golly. Back when they used to lube chassis, man, you just pump grease through these things and just ooze it out both ends. But we may have to take it off to be able to smack this knuckle. Let's take a look. Yeah, we're gonna end up having to take the ball joint off just so we can get, or the tie rod off, so we can smack the side of the knuckle. But no problem. Here's another cotter pin. It's time to get a visual example because it's not buried. Bend the tangs up. Get as flat as possible. Get the head out just a little bit. Take your side cutters, dikes. Pull it out. It's that simple. And we are not going to have the socket. Looks like a 15. Got it on a second try. It's a 17 millimeter on this particular car, or this particular tie rod end. So on these knuckles, there's flat spots on both sides, and this thing's not going to come out. And you don't want to beat on this because you'll mushroom this to where the nut won't go back on. You put the nut on, you'll actually hammer the nut down and you'll destroy the threads on the nut. So while that may work, especially with cars recently been apart, it's easier just to take a big hammer and smack that knuckle on that side. That being said, now we need to do that same thing, repeat that same thing near the lower ball joint. And that vibration that's going through is going to shock the static or friction that's holding the ball joint inside the knuckle. That's it. Now we make sure our jack is in a good spot. We don't want this thing moving around on us. There's a ridge or a cup lip that the spring sits in, and I like to get the jack puck kind of supporting that cup. Bound up on the spring or the brake backing plate. Got our tie rod tearing up our Daytona sticker. Damn it. It looks so good with all that shop shit all over it. And there it is. That's the spring ready to come out. Man. Took that to the shin. Don't do that. There's the spring. Ooh, I'm gonna walk it off. Let's chalk that one up as what not to do, because that seriously hurt. But we've got it out now. Now we're gonna cut it. I really don't want to go too low on this car. So we call that a half. There's a 1, there's a 1.5. And I think that's what we're gonna go for, is the 1.5. So that'd be right about there. I'm gonna think on it for a minute. I'm gonna get back to you. All right, guys, there's the dry fit, as I call it. That's 1.5 coils. And there's still a little wheel gap there. The back comes down a little bit because there is some weight being lifted off because of the pivoting of the front end over the jack stands. It does tuck just the top of the tire. Oh, man, decisions. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna think on it for a second. All right. So I showed Scott, the other bro of those bros, a picture of my dry fit on that front wheel, and he said he'd like to see it a little more level, and I don't disagree with him. So I took an extra quarter of a turnout of the passenger side and did the other side the exact same way. See how she looks. She ain't got much travel left in the front. Man, what do y'all think? I think she looks pretty good. Hey everybody, what are you doing today? We're gonna go cruising. We're gonna take the Cutlass out. We are going to take, hold on, wait for it, the 63 out, the Cutlass Cruiser for its first time. I stickered it up. You know, been called a lot of things in life. Subtle ain't one of them. I did get them all warmed up a little bit, check some fluids, and one of the things that I need to do before I drive this car and fill my eyes full of luscious debris is we need to get in here. You see this crap on the seat? It comes from up there. So I've got my trusty Cutco shears. We're gonna cut this headliner out and vacuum as much of this crap off as we can, so I don't spend my night inhaling this stuff. That being said, we are going to be going to the Puyallup Cruise in Puyallup, Washington. If I spelt it for you, you probably couldn't pronounce it without somebody telling you how. Average, probably 1,500 cars. This year, they failed to file permits, so it's kind of like an impromptu cruise. And we might get shut down. We might drive an hour to get there to be turned around. But we're going to do some filming. We got Vinny coming out with his Corvette. We got Scott bringing the Cutlass Wagon out. Those are two of the other bros of those bros. It's not just me, the bro. Anyway, I'm going to get to work, and we'll catch up with you guys here in a little bit. There it is. Headliner's out. All that nastiness is gone. Back to your regularly scheduled program of cruising. Coming soon. All right, we are off. We are on a 40-mile journey to the cruise tonight, and we will be hanging out for quite some time. I'm gonna get some footage there, and yeah, see what we can do. Hopefully we make it home without a problem. It is leaking a little bit of coolant, but I think it might be because it's just over full. Anyway, I'll keep you posted. Peace. very interesting color on the 66. Sure. So we're at about mile 60 of 80 for the night. Made it there just fine. Did a couple of cruise loops. Hung out. Saw some friends. Didn't get nearly as much video as I wanted to. But that's what happens when it's the first cruise of the year. It actually happens quite a bit with me. I end up running into a bunch of people I don't get to see all the time unless we're at car events. The car is running great. But after we got there, slowed down to service street speeds, well, cruise speeds, smoking really bad out of the tailpipe. Carburetor, it's done. There's a mixture control valve that's in the carburetor that's failed. It's not making these 80s emission systems. It would open and close based on what the oxygen sensor was telling it to do. I ended up unplugging it just to get the car to run. That being said, smoking real bad out of the tailpipe. We parked it for about an hour, socialized, son played at the park. Went to start it up, bottom end noise. It's not a rod knock, but it had a little bit of a rattle to it when the oil was hot. Didn't do it the second time we started it, but we're gonna have to evaluate that. I don't know if you can tell, but it's also got, at about anything over 60, the rear differential really starts vibrating. It's not front end, it's not coming from the steering wheel. Front end's nice and smooth, but we got a wicked vibration coming from the back of the car, anything above 60. So anyway, stay tuned, guys. Thanks for joining us. If you made it to this point, I appreciate you, man. We're just getting started. It's rough. I'm running out of ideas already on this particular car because I don't know how far I want to go into it. But if you got some ideas you'd like to see, drop them in the comments. Have a good night, guys.